Namaskar. Welcome to Impact Travelogue by Harmony Inc. At Impact Travelogue, we cover stories of grassroots changemakers. Today we have Mr. Gautam Malik from Jaggery Bags. Thank you, Gautam, for joining us in this conversation. To ensure that your business goes on, and there are situations like COVID happened, and I'm sure that sometimes your business gets impacted. Is there a backup plan? Do you have a BCP plan in place to absorb these kind of market shocks or general shocks like these?
We don't as such have that the luxury to have a backup plan. We are going all out. This is it, sink or swim for us. And we, like I said, I tried highlighting a certain few areas that reveal themselves to us, that keep giving us enough strength and momentum that you're on the right path, keep going. It's just a matter of time before one or two people who can really make a difference, significant difference in your life, identify you.
Yeah.
And I think those signals have started reaching the right people also, because some of the interesting developments that we've had in the recent past have included us being onboarded on international movements like Catalyst 2030, which is a huge movement of 1600 odd people, powerful people, social innovators from around the world, funders, philanthropists, social innovators, policy makers, government officials, who are trying to rally each other and mobilize and re-energize the SDGs before 2030.
And other thing is, as of late, there's a lot of talk about ESG, especially last 2.5 years since the COVID has happened. There's a lot of consciousness within the India Inc. And like I was mentioning, SEBI has mandated companies, certain companies, to report on BRSR. Now, one of the components of BRSR is to source sustainably from social enterprises. Now, how do you see a social enterprise, that how do you see your visibility coming across, to India Inc., and what kind of role you think they can play in terms of encouraging such kind of social enterprise such as yours?
Yeah, that's a really interesting and a complicated question, because there are no quick and short answers to it. The realization that we've had, like I mentioned early on in our conversation, that we had initially wanted this to be an India-specific venture.
Yeah.
And with next to zero exports, right? And maybe just concentrate on the local market. But then we realized that India is a unique, opportunity. While our triggers are many, the one common thread between almost all states is that we are very price point conscious, right? So people look at end product and not necessarily the product story. So I think post-COVID, what has started emerging is that people are interested in the product story also now, and they're willing to lend a concessional view to the maker, that what is it that you're genuinely trying to solve for. So there is an openness to kind of be more acceptable, in that space. So
if there is an ask from your side to India,
yeah,
what would that be?
So the ask is that open yourself to be a little more non-price point conscious, and look at the whole like the value chain of what is being created, right? So in terms of everything that we do is unprecedented, right? Like right from choosing the materials like car seat belts and cargo belts. If you look around the world, car seat belts, yes, there are a handful of players working in that space, makers. But if you look at cargo belts, we are the only one globally, right? So if we've managed to discover something, by hook or by crook or by accident, let's say, then I think that's something that will lend itself very strongly to becoming a story of India Inc. as well, right? So if we are able to scale our organization, then automatically some light of this will also shine on India Inc. That it's not because of our independent efforts, but the efforts of our community, the community that we rally with. So the ask would be very simple: to be open and receptive to new ideas. We have a tendency to shut ourselves off and work in our own silos, and so I think we need to become a part of a global discourse, and be more clued in with the interesting things that are happening around the world. We need to stop looking at role models in cricket, Bollywood, and we need to have new role models. Only then can we, kind of compete with the West. So with, my honest and sincere request is to be more open and receptive to non-conformist ideas, and have there be a creative space where they can also thrive.
Yeah, and that's the objective of having these conversations, that
Exactly.
we take your stories and we take grassroots stories, bring them to India Inc. and other investors, so that people know about it, and whenever there are those challenges of identifying who are those partners that we can actually tap on to, they get to hear that and they kind of meet them there.
Exactly. So it's great to kind of connect with people who come from different sectors, right? Policy makers. Like for instance, we have an idea that we are working on ecosystem building.
Yeah.
Right. We want to create vocational programs for people who are not necessarily interested in the the age-old CBSE formula, and want to find if there is a way for them to create a sustained living, right? And we know because of the interest that we get from the global community that there are enough and many takers of these kind of ideas from around the world, that policymakers and government officials, without their support, we are not going to be able to do that. So India Inc. is very kind of hard to summarize into one silo or one particular cluster. So like this is also something that media really needs to help. The fourth pillar of our economy really needs to help. Like for instance, we are hoping that through conversations like the one that we are having with you, we'll be able to reach out to one switched on person somewhere in the world that can, or perhaps somewhere in India, that can shed more meaningful light on our kind of ventures. And it would be really interesting to have close to 5 to 10,000 independent makers like Jaggery from around the country to come up and create a super network of sorts. For instance, in the WEF, there's a lot of talk about the in combating COVID related and addressing COVID relief fronts. There's the Great Reset that they've launched, right? But for the Great Reset to happen, for the Great Revolution to happen, a Great Reset is required, right?
Yeah.
So the Great Revolution, to get to the Great Revolution, we have to really respect and be a part of the Great Reset. So with India Inc., that's your ask. That's the ask, is to be a part of the reset.
No, thank you so much, Gautam, for sharing your story, and I'm
Most
sure
welcome.
that I think this message is going across to India Inc. and we're hoping more and more collaborations for social enterprises. That's the idea. Thank you so much for having
Thank you,
this
Richa. Thanks for
conversation.
having me.
Yeah.